Hello, this is Gene. This is my second video I'm doing today. I don't know if I'll put them all out today, but I get my new phone tomorrow, so we'll see. I want to talk about Stephen Howson. Now, this is a guy, he's a pundit, been around full-time Devils. I mean, he's probably in his 40s, I think. I would assume he is, just looking at him. Former military guy. There were times that I didn't really like the dude, to be honest. I think it was more of his just persona, when he was talking. But he's kind of like softened a little bit with that over the years. And there was always this battle between full times Devils and United Stand, and United Stand just blew up. Now full time Bevel is now Streffic Paddock, and still Mark Olbridge and his team his channels are a lot more. But what Steven's doing is totally different, and that's something I just want to celebrate today. I know for the last couple of weeks, I've always, especially the last year, his technical analysis I've really enjoyed. Of all the fan channels and pundits, I just really like his. And clearly, he's a coach, and he is the first team coach at his club, and that's a very important thing too that he does, and what he's trying to instill. Hard work with young men. I think that's a great thing. And I think that's something that happens when you're in the military and you're around other men. I think you're like, well, I want to give back to younger men, and I think that that's a good sign from a man. But he's gone through a lot of things in his life, and like I said, tactically, I think he's one of the best out there. And I don't care anybody on TV that I hear. There's nobody that's better than him. Doesn't mean he's 100% right in my mind, but when he says something, I understand where it's coming from, you understand that the thought process. So I will watch him for that. And I didn't watch his real life stuff. And I'm never going to meet the guy. Why? I don't want to do that. I'm not into reality type shows too much. My wife watches some of it. Some I watch, but I'm not. I look at people online. I don't know them. And he said something today about today, and I'll talk about. But I just started watching him, and he just walking around his countryside, and I'm like thinking, "Dan, I've been to Manchester before. Where he's at is so beautiful, and I would love that." I mean, I walk around here, and there are parts where I'm at that obviously have hills and stuff, but I'm not really by them. But apparently, where he's at, he's really by that. So he walks around that, and he gets to his gems from that. But what he does during these walks is like a motivational thing, because he's gone through all the changes in his life, from a mental side to a physical side, because he got really big, right? And I was like, damn, he's big, and that happens, when you become a little bit famous and you're always on the road and you go do stuff, you're going to go get fast food, and you're going to do that. And because it gives you that dopamine rush, because you're getting all that sugar or whatever, and you like that shit. But as you get a bit older, you're like, man, I gotta do something about it. And he talked about today that he had something on his phone from 2019 when he tried to put on a shirt, and he looked like, it didn't look good on him. And he said, I put that there, but it still took him a couple of years to actually get to where he actually does stuff, actually get up and start doing stuff. I'm not saying it sounds like he was watching or reading Jordan Peterson or something, but it was something like that. Not that I'm a big fan of Peterson, because some of his ideology and I think that me and Steven probably would not be in the same level ideologically. I think that he's probably most people in Britain are a little bit more either center, even the right wing Britain is not really right, other than the ones they think that are like Nazis or whatever. But I would assume he's probably, as most of them are in England, which whatever, But I just started watching this stuff when he's walking and he's talking about his life, and he starts up as, "How you doing, mate?" So he's actually talking to you individually. So you're like, wow, man, you feel you understand he's personal about what he has to do. He clearly has some sort of motivational, what's the word, persona he can actually use. And I think being in the military probably helped him with that. I think being a father, and then mentoring young men, I think that's really helped him with this. And the fact that he realized that he was having some problems with his his levels, and which is really weird. Again, I'm older than him, and I think maybe there are a lot of guys his age and even younger that are having real issues with the fact that their hormones are so fucked up, our testosterone is so off, and he looks like a big dude, right? He does weight training. He was MMA. I wouldn't want to get in a fight with the dude, but he probably had some issues with testosterone, and I don't know what that is. You can have that debate where that comes from, whatever, but clearly it's affecting our young men, and he had to actually address this. Now I have not seen enough where he talks about it, but he even talked today something about his own identity, and I was like, what is he talking about there? I mean, what are we talking about here? Because in the United States, identity is always talking about the trans things and pronouns and all that stuff, and I don't think that's what he's talking about. So I tweeted him today. I said, I would like you to at least respond what that means. Now, maybe he already has, and I hope he does. What he means by that, I would think. Now, again, if I was in Britain right now, I would say what my identity is, that I'm an Englishman, and I want to fight what that means. That I want everybody to understand what it means to be an Englishman, because what they're going through right now in England is very hard for them. People like him are the ones being blamed for everything. And there are the people there in the high levels that are allowing things to happen that are fundamentally changing England. And I said, I don't know where he is on that identity is. I don't know where he is on that side. If he's okay with people come across and landing on beaches in England and then having them paying for everything for these people, and they end up doing stuff where they kill and rape kids. I don't know where he is on that. I'm sure he doesn't support it. I mean, I wouldn't think he would, because he's a military man. He wants to defend his country and all that. I'm sure I don't think he's as far as right that I would be on this. I would get rid of all of them. I'm sure he probably isn't that way. He probably looks at Englishmen a little bit differently than I would look at them, as far as the color and all that. And that's not really the point of this, is that I really appreciate when a young man, I'm sure, like I said, in his 40s, that his whole focus in life is to do great things for the club that he manages, and he wants this to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And he says, all I'm going to do is try to support the young guys here, and then yes, I'm going to make sure that they get to Manchester United. And they're not going to Liverpool. They're not going to City. That there's going to be one day that these guys are going to be starting for Manchester United, and then when they're done, when they're on their break, to come down and they're going to support us down here. He said, that's what I'm trying to do, grassroots and all that stuff. And it just seems, it's just really so inspirational to me to hear young men thinking that way. And I looked at, most of his team is not native white Englishmen, what I looked at. So that doesn't matter. What matters is that the values that, if you're an Englishman, what that actually means. I got these bugs going everywhere around me, these gnats. So like I said, it's very inspirational for me to see that. Everybody would love us that we could all get together and get along, but that's not how it is. Each drive of people try to do their own stuff. It doesn't matter where they go. They want to take whatever their issue is with them to where they go. And England is dealing with that right now. And they're not, we have it in the United States, right? But they're on that island. It's much more focused there. And you can't really get away from it. Now you go out and look in the rural areas, and a lot of these guys, not him specifically. I mean, obviously he lives in a nice area. It seems like Mark Goldbridge, he moved out into the wilderness, away from all this stuff, and then he sits there and says that, really, in my mind, Mark Goldbridge is anti-English. He thinks that everything is, we would do anything if it was an English person. We won't say anything about it. But if a foreigner comes in and he can't do the job and can't do anything about it, and that's my last video. Then I'll talk about him in depth about why he's a cancer for fan channels. Now, for guys like him, Stephen, and Sam Peoples, they don't call people out, right? He just says they say things. I'm not talking about other fan channels. He just says there's a lot of people talking about stuff. He obviously called out other pundits today about the double standard about Manchester United, and there clearly is. We have it here for New York City or New York Yankees and all that, or the Cowboys. We have it. But it's just nice to see this guy coming out here, and you can tell what his focus is all about, and trying to give back. And it just makes the 60-year-old man in me to stand up and say, Jesus Christ, you can do better than what you're doing. I need to get involved. I need to do stuff. I wish I had enough money that I would he said he's looking for land to build the stadium. I would, shit, if I had the money, I'd give it to him, just because I know that he would do something about it, and I know that it would actually, in fact, impact hundreds of kids, and that it would be so much better for the future of England. See, it's not just about football, and he made that almost clear. This is the national game they have there, and we've lost it here with our baseball, but that's their national game. If you can get it at the ground roots and you have coaches that are actually qualified to play there, not at the end of that, you're going to have a great national team that's going to probably get a lot of World Cups. That's great, but you're talking about these guys getting off the streets, doing stuff, because a lot of these are in areas, it doesn't matter what color you are, in areas that are not doing that well financially, and they do stuff to support that, but you get them out in the club, and then they do this, they move through that, and they come back, they give back. And that's what you should do. That's why it's the national game, and it should always come back. If you get to the point that you're playing for Manchester United making $200,000 a week, of course you should bring money back to where you came from. You know, I think it's a great idea. You know, if you're not gonna, you want the church to be more involved in all that stuff, but if you're not gonna have that on the grand scale, then something like football can be used for that. And I think it's so inspirational to me to see him doing that, and you just see it in his eyes. You know, when he's walking at the end there, he's like, "This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it." You know, and just that's what men are. No matter what the media has done to us and all that stuff, if we didn't have guys that have risk takers, now it's football. It's not like going across the ocean in 1200, okay? But it's you're talking about the actual benefits and what the actually impacts it could be down the line. It may not be the same, but it can be. You have to understand that that really means, because you have so many young, disaffected young men in the Western world, and to have an outlet like that. And if you're not good enough, then you become a coach. I'm not saying that you could be a coach, you could be a player, and then later on become a coach. I'm just saying there are times, there are all the ways, there are other things other in the football area. You can be in the background, do the media and all that stuff. We have all that stuff too. But it's so good for them to have an outlet, other than being at home, sitting on there playing football or on their phone all the time. Being outside and doing stuff, like he's walking around and says, I have to do this for myself. I have to go walk out in the scenery. I have to do it because this is what I am. And this is, you know, he's from a line of, I mean, when you think about it, what Britain was, he had his line goes back to when they ran the entire world. So he comes from a great stock of people, and when he talks about his identity, I'm just wondering if he's talking about that. Is he talking about defending his heritage? I don't identity as a father. I mean, I don't know, because in the United States and other parts in the Western world, the identity debate, you don't really know what we're talking about. You know, what are we talking about? Your balls? So I would love he would actually come out and talk about that, or at least he doesn't have to. He has to do it on a forum. He could do it on Patreon or something like that, where he's going to talk about it. I would think that'd be an interesting debate from somebody, what that means to a white guy in England right now. What does that actually mean? You know, and I don't know enough about him personally. The fact that he sits there and says, "Hey, coming down and say hello," apparently he's very approachable. You know, I tell you, the first couple of times I'd watch him, I mean, this is years ago, I just didn't think he was that type of dude. I don't know what it was. Maybe it's something he was pushing out. You know, I don't know. I think he thought he was the smartest person in the room. Maybe. Maybe when you compare him to the other people on that show, he probably was. But he clearly has changed. And I think maturity, having kids, seeing the world, I guess. It's interesting to see what he actually means by identity. So I'm just going to put it out there, ask him what that means. You know, I'm an old dude in the United States. I will go back to England at some point, and if I go back to England, I definitely will go and go see his team play, and I will try to help whatever I can. I was looking online about getting a shirt or something, but I think maybe I'll find another way to actually support the club. I love the idea, though. I love the idea that I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have all this team set up, And of course, the first team, hopefully you get to the point that they get to the point where they can actually compete and be in the league, right? To get, Division II, whatever, actually get in the FA, the league area, the league, right? But he's like, it's not. We're not going against Manchester United. He said basically when they get to the point that he can go to the FA Cup, that he's going to step back and go back and actually deal with the younger kids. And I'm like, that's just giving back, right? That's so great. And at that point, he'll be training people, probably be other coaches as well. And you have this thing that goes over and over and becomes part of the community and the culture and all that stuff. And again, it has nothing to do about race, not at all. Okay, people always say, Gene, you're just a white nationalist or something. Like, no, I just think that we should be at the table when we're talking about what's going to be the future of their country that you're in. We should not be breeded out of existence because we're white. When people say that we're going to be a minority in a white country, we should be able to stand up and say that doesn't sound right. I'm just just saying we could do a little bit better. So, but anyway, I'm going to stop right there. I don't know if I'm going to try to send this to him through Twitter or not, but I will put it on my channel and I'll share it to him, let's say, and he can look at it if he wants. But that's the only thing. I wish he would talk about that and what that means. But regardless, whether he responds to it or not, I just want to say I've really appreciated his content, especially the last 2 years, especially the tactical analysis. But recently, actually listened to him just basically talk about life and how it actually reverts back to football. And that's why football is so important to the world, because there's always this life lesson when it comes to sports. And football is one of those avenues that we can have that. Okay, that's all I got to say right now. You guys have a good day, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.